Let me resume recording. Okay. Well, hello everyone tuning in to this joint degree program information session and panel. My name is Caroline Ward. I'm a senior assistant dean of admission here at the undergraduate admission office of William and Mary, and my role within the joint degree program is to kind of liaison between the program and admission, and I do review applications to the joint degree program. I've been with William and Mary about 9 years, and I've been the liaison for the joint degree program like 5 to 7 years. I'm not quite positive at this point, but it's been a little while. And I will pass off introductions to Harmony Douglas.
Hi, I'm Harmony Douglas. I am the director of the program on the William and Mary side. This is my fourth year in this role, and it is most definitely one of my favorite things that I do at William and Mary. I have my counterpart from St. Andrews. I'll let her introduce herself next.
Hello, everybody. My name is Madhavina Vodder, and I am the academic director of the program on the St. Andrews side, as well as being a dean in St. Andrews. Very nice to meet you all. Should I pass up to Julia? Because I can see her closest to me.
Sure. Hello, my name's Julia Greiner, and I'm a fourth year history major in the joint degree program. Can pass it off to any other advisors, I imagine.
I'll go. Hi, my name is Leah Hale. I am a rising fourth year and an English major.
Uh, I'll go next. Is everything okay now? Hello.
I think we're hearing a little bit of a repeat of sound coming through. But Marissa, if you want to exit and then come back in, we'll move on with other introductions, but feel free to exit and come right back in. Jack, I'll pass it off to you.
Hello, I'm Jack. I am an econ major and I'm also a rising fourth year.
I can go next. My name is Grayson Covington. I'm also a rising fourth year and I'm studying international relations.
I'll go ahead. Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the assistant director on the William and Mary side. So I work under Harmony and work closely with her and Molly.
I think that might leave me. My name is Alistair. I work in the admission side on the St Andrews side. This is my first full year. I'm a senior education liaison officer at the University in Admissions. This is my first full year helping look after from the admissions side the JDP, the BA International Honours Programme. Lovely to meet you all.
Okay, we'll try again, Marissa.
Hello. Perfect.
Perfect.
So sorry about that. My name is Marissa Romero, and I am a rising senior as a international relations major. Nice to meet you all.
Wonderful. Well, before passing off to Harmony, I want to let everybody know tuning in today that we will get to a Q&A portion after our director presents a few slides. Please drop your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you don't see it at the bottom of your Zoom screen, please click the More button and there should be an option that says Q&A. Please drop your questions in at any time and we will try our best to answer all of those. So you can start dropping them in right now or wait till after the presentation. Okay, I'll pass it off to Harmony.
All right, thanks, Caroline. I promise not to talk long. I just want to give you a brief overview of some of the common questions that we see and a brief introduction to the program. So we are two preeminent universities and one transformative degree. That degree is called the Bachelor of Arts International Honors. And we are one of the few international undergraduate joint degrees offered between a UK and US university. Now, this joint degree, how do you get there? It's 2 years at St. Andrews and 2 years at William and Mary, and you end up with this Bachelor of Arts International Honors. Now, this 2+2 begins the same way, but does have some flexibility. So if you apply through William and Mary and start as a William and Mary student, you'll spend your first year here. You'll then go to St. Andrews for your second year. Students also can apply through St. Andrews, but not both. You choose to apply to William and Mary or St. Andrews. Then you would start your first year at St. Andrews, and then you would do your second year here at William and Mary. So here's where the flexibility comes in. For year 3, you may choose. Do you want to stay at William and Mary? Do you want to stay at St. Andrews? Or do you want to go back to the other institution? And then wherever you decide to spend your 3rd year, you spend your 4th year at the other institution. So you can end either at St. Andrews or at William and Mary, regardless of where you start. That leads to the degree. So a little bit of introduction. I'd just like to show some of my favorite stats that I'm really proud of about William and Mary. Number 6 public school for undergraduate teaching. That's something we really value here. And many of our classes have fewer, most of our classes have fewer than 40 students in them. We are also ranked number 1 for study abroad and among the top 10 schools for internships. Now, this piece about undergraduate teaching and the importance of that is really something that we share with our partners at the University of St. Andrews. They've been ranked number 1 in the UK and number 1 for student academic experience. They call it research-led teaching. At William & Mary, we call it the teacher-scholar model, but we really have the same philosophy. We're about the same size, William & Mary a little bit smaller, St. Andrews a little bit bigger. But I think that kind of core philosophy of education is what makes this degree really work, and the strong partnership that we have. So this joint program is within our 2 universities. We currently have about 250 students across both campuses. And 6 majors: classical studies, economics, English, film studies, history, and international relations. And you do apply declaring your major right away. So you'll apply to one of these degree programs. The degree has both depth and breadth. That's bringing together the depth of a St. Andrews degree with the breadth of a William and Mary liberal arts degree. The depth is 54 to 60 credits you'll take as part of this degree in your major, and that compares to a William and Mary degree, which is about 37 to 42. So you're taking more credits in your major. You'll also do a 4th year research experience. Looks different depending on what university you end at. It's either a dissertation at St. Andrews, an honors thesis, independent study, or capstone at William and Mary. But to bring that breadth, we have these knowledge objective classes, which is a portion of the CALL curriculum you might have heard of related to the William and Mary degree. And then we have different proficiencies as well. So we're bringing that liberal arts perspective of broad scholarship along with this depth in your specific discipline. A few differences for the joint program. So AP or IB tests or any pre-matriculation credit will get you out of some requirements, but you won't actually receive the credit towards the degree. So you can check off some of those proficiencies, for example, but it doesn't give you credit, but it allows you to take other courses for the degree. There isn't at this time a double major, but you can do a major and any minor that's in the William and Mary catalog. And there's no difference between in-state or out-of-state tuition. You pay that tuition to William and Mary if you're William and Mary home student all 4 years, or you pay the tuition to St. Andrews if you're a St. Andrews home student. But wherever you are residing, that's where you will pay for room and board, and you are guaranteed housing at both universities for all 4 years. Our students go on to do a wide range of things, anything from business and management consulting. Many students also go on to professional school like law school or additional graduate school. So there isn't just one thing that a joint program student goes on to do. We train you to succeed in a broad variety of careers. And the last point that I want to make is that this isn't a traditional study abroad program, because students in this program are full members of both schools. So you can participate in clubs, fraternities, sports, newspapers, all these things on both campuses. You have access to funding for internships and research opportunities at both schools. Things like the Washington, D.C. Center and the Global Research Institute at William and Mary, and our summer and winter study abroad programs. These are all things that students in the joint program can participate in and benefit from. So I'm just going to leave you with this lovely picture of graduation at both universities and open the floor for questions. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Harmony. So for those tuning in, feel free to start dropping your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you can't see it there, then click on the More button, but it should be either under More or just at the bottom of your screen. I do have a few prepared questions while our attendees are thinking of some. So for our student panelists out there, can you talk about that transition between your first year and your second year, that transition from one school to the other? Yes, feel free to go ahead, Leah. Thanks.
Okay, so my transition from first to second year, I felt was easier because I fostered relationships within the program. I was lucky enough that my next door neighbor freshman year was also in my program or was in the joint degree program, and we became really good friends. So having those, 4 or 5 friends in the cohort going over who were experiencing that transition at the same time, I found really helpful.
I would quite agree with Leah. I think the friends I made in the program made the transition a lot easier going to St. Andrews because I already had people I knew in classes and in my hall at St. Andrews. But I also found that some of the kind of more administrative parts of your freshman year at William and Mary really helped because there's a class that you take freshman year as a joint degree program student, and it kind of walks you through both a lot of the academic and social differences between the schools, but also even applying for a visa, which was a bit of a complicated process. So I really appreciated that help, and I think it made it a lot easier to just logistically get to St. Andrews.
Great. Well, we already have questions coming in from our audience members. So for the first question, someone is asking, since the JDP essay is a quite extensive length, would it be helpful to use headings to separate parts of the essay, i.e. intro, why William Mary, why St. Andrews, conclusion, etc. So I'll kind of handle that one. In terms of the essay and its format, we leave it completely up to you and what you're comfortable with. You don't have to separate it out into titles. Basically, the JDP essay prompt is asking you two main questions. We want to know why you want to do the joint degree program. So we're trying to learn, how much do you know about it? What excites you about it? But then also, the prompt is asking why that particular major. It is the only program at William Mary where you're applying directly into that major. So when you're applying to the program and you're doing it through William Mary, we do want to know, what's your background in that major, what interests you, and what excites you about studying that major in the joint degree program. So as long as you answer those prompts, whatever format makes you most comfortable is fine with us. But it is quite a long one. For those that aren't familiar, I believe it's 1,500 to 2,000 words. So good to get started a little early, write a few drafts. And then we have another question. How many students do you accept into the program? So we try to have about 5 students per major, maybe a little over or a little under, depending on the major. And we try to have about 35 to 40 students in the program each year. So it is a small program. In terms of how many students are accepted, we don't really track it because it's such a varied number each year. But I will say we usually have well over a few hundred students applying into this program each year. And for our William and Mary side, when reviewing joint degree program applicants, you first have to be admitted to William and Mary before you are reviewed for the joint degree program. So your application and essay for the joint degree program won't be seen until you are accepted to William and Mary. So that's a little bit about the admission side. So another question is, how do students foster relationships within the cohort for their first year? So I'll let the students answer this one. Yep, Gracie, go ahead.
So I was lucky enough to meet 2 girls that became really close to me and later became my third year flatmates in my first year econ class. I think it was micro at William and Mary. A lot of international relations students, particularly in the first year, and I'm speaking from the William and Mary side, starting there. We had a lot of classes together, so there were a lot of familiar faces from my JDP class that I would take in a lot of my micro introduction to like international politics classes. And I had a lot of those familiar faces again in kind of similar classes when I went to St. Andrews, which was really helpful.
I also met some people in clubs, which, I didn't necessarily join those clubs with the intention of making friends specifically in the JDP, but I just think like JDP students sort of tend to be extremely involved in both campuses, since we only have 2 years at each school, it's kind of helpful to dive in. And so I was lucky enough to meet like girls through club soccer, and other stuff like that.
Great. We have more questions here. So next question is, what is your advice on the essay we need to write for the joint program? So it kind of harkens back to what I mentioned earlier about addressing those prompts, because we want to get as much information from your essay as we possibly can about your interest in the program. So if you have an experience overseas you want to mention, or maybe you haven't traveled overseas but you're really excited and here's why, any detail you can provide on the joint degree program and what you know about it. So if you're tuning into this session today or watching a recording of this session, and you talk about what Harmony presented on or what you're hearing from our panelists today, that can be really helpful because that's showing that you know the details of the program. And then the question asking about why that particular major, that can be helpful in getting a little more information that we can't get from your transcript. So your transcript will show what classes you're taking and how well you're doing in it, but it won't tell us which class you were passionate about, or what was your favorite project in that class, or how it introduced you to this interest in this major. So that can be helpful to get from the essay. But we really leave it up to you what you want to share with us. And then how does the application work for applying to this program? Is there a separate application for the Common App? That's a great question because I've been talking about from the William Mary side, but I definitely want Alistair and Madhavi to kind of chime in with the St. Andrews side as well and how that works. But for the joint degree program application on the William & Mary side, it is just an additional essay within the William & Mary application. So when you're completing the William & Mary Common application, you will get to a question asking, would you also like to apply to the joint degree program with St. Andrews? If you check mark that saying yes, you are interested in doing so, it will then open up that essay prompt for you to complete. So that is how you apply to the joint degree program. You will get 2 admission decisions, one for William & Mary and one for the joint degree program. That's a little bit about how our application process works, but I will pass it off to our St. Andrews colleagues to talk about the St. Andrews side. I will say too, just one thing I almost left out. You can only choose one of us to apply to for this program. So you have to decide, where do I want to begin? If you want to begin at William & Mary, then please feel free to apply to the joint degree program on the William & Mary side. If you want to begin at St. Andrews, feel free to apply to the joint degree program on their side. But just so you're all aware, you can only apply to one of us for this particular program. Okay, now I will pass it off to my St. Andrews colleagues.
Thanks, Caroline. So from our side, there are 2 ways that you can apply to us. So one is through the Common App, and similar as Caroline was saying, if you are able to select a sort of specific BA option, if you wanted to be considered for the BA or the JDP program. The thing that I want to highlight from us is that you are able to apply for St. Andrews and this specific program at the same time, but we would only ever consider you for one route or the other. So you would never get an offer for just St. Andrews and the JDP, the BA and /Alliance program. It would only ever be one. And we would email out to you and contact you if you do end up selecting both there. But you can, similar as was described through the Common App, there would be a specific prompt that you would then fill in, asking for similar sort of essay and prompt as to why you want to be considered for the program. And we also do have a direct application with a similar sort of prompt where you could apply to us that way as well. We don't have a preference. It's whatever makes life easier for you. If you're already using the Common App, by all means, please use the Common App. If you wouldn't ordinarily be using the Common App, then you can apply to us directly. We don't mind.
Great, thank you so much. And then our next question is asking, is this an exchange program? Will you see people from Scotland in your classes as well? I'll let Harmony and Madhavi talk about that a bit.
The short answer is yes. Madhavi,
Yes.
do you want to answer? Yes.
Sure. Yes, you will see Scottish people. It is a true exchange. And other than the transitions class, which you'll take at both William and Mary, and then a second iteration of it at St. Andrews to cover slightly different information, you will be in class in Scotland with all other students in your given major. Um, we are an international university, and so as you saw in one of the slides, 41% of our students are international students. So you will hear accents from all over the world and languages from all over the world. But we won't keep you in bespoke classes for all of your subjects. On the contrary, the point is for you to experience and participate into very special educational systems.
And that mode is the same at William and Mary, although you probably won't see as many Scottish students here. But yes, you are fully taking classes with all William and Mary students, not just with the joint program cohort.
Wonderful, thank you. And we have someone asking, what ordering of William Mary and St. Andrews years/semesters would be optimal? So thinking about the years, going the ABBA track or ABAB. For those tuning in, if your home school, so whether that's William Mary or St. Andrews, if your home school is A and your away school is B, whether it's optimal to go ABBA or ABAB. And as students, if you want to chime in which route you took and why, that would be helpful too.
I chose ABBA. My homeschool's William and Mary. So I'll be finishing my senior year this year at William and Mary. I chose to do my 2 middle years at St. Andrews because just having like 2 consecutive years to connect with a campus, I feel like it was helpful transition wise. Like, the great thing about this program is that you get to do 2 years at each school, but that's also like, oh, you only get to do 2 years at each school. So having that home base and like a little bit of consistency, I found to be really good for my relationships, specifically at St. Andrews. And, that being said, I also, still have friends at William and Mary from my freshman year that I'm very excited to come back and spend my senior year with.
Jack, you should go.
So I did ABAB. I started in St. Andrews, went to William and Mary. Then for my third year, I went back to St. Andrews. I mean, for me personally, I just really chose to go back to St. Andrews just because I kind of missed my friends there and I didn't want to wait 2 years before seeing them. But I mean, in terms of like what's optimal, it's all subjective. You're ultimately going to take the same required classes at either institution. And there isn't really much of a difference like academically between like which classes you're going to take until like senior year. I think William and Mary just has more options for like a final kind of independent research or kind of capstone project kind of thing. And I wanted to do that at William and Mary. I liked the kind of extra options that it gave me.
Great, Madhavi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I don't want to cut off a student who might have an experience. So please, Marissa or Julia, or Grayson, if you have anything to say, please go after me. What I will say about choosing, I absolutely agree with Jack. There is no optimal way of doing it. It comes down to the individual, your own experience, and also, as you say, what you might want to do in your final year. And let me assure you that we will have discussions with you about what that is, right? So it's not something that you just kind of have to figure out on your own. We'll speak about what the differences are. But I will say there are some advantages to finishing in one place or the other if you are not a US or UK citizen, vis-a-vis post-study visas. So if you finish in the UK, at least for now, you can still apply for a 2-year post-study work visa, which you can only apply for if you finish in the UK. Though I am American, I haven't lived there in more than 20 years, so I'm not quite sure what the rules are at this point. But also in terms of perhaps preparing for a career in finance in New York or in politics in Washington, D.C., there may be some advantages of finishing up in Washington. So those are things to think about, though, again, you will be. We will have many contexts to speak about those decisions, so you don't have to worry about that too much right now. Know that we will kind of help you and coach you along in that process.
Great, thank you. We have for our next question, someone asking, can you get rejected from the joint degree program but still accepted into the school? So I know from the William Mary side, yes, you can be rejected from the joint degree program or not admitted, and still be admitted to William Mary because of that process that we have that I mentioned earlier, where you have to be accepted to William Mary before your joint degree program application is reviewed. That does mean that there are many students each year that are admitted to William Mary, but not the joint degree program. That being said, we do have a wait list for the joint degree program, and so some students might be added to the wait list and they come to William Mary and then they are eventually in the joint degree program or still interested in it. So they reach out to the team here. And then on the St. Andrews side, does someone want to jump in and talk about that?
Yeah, I can jump in. So from the St. Andrews side, when you apply, you are, for us, usually applying for the specific program. So in some cases, some students may apply to study at St. Andrews full-time and may then receive an offer to study specifically on the JDP. If when we're reading and review of the application, we think actually you would get a lot out of the program, would be really suitable and a good fit for the program. So in some cases, some students may apply to do full-time at St. Andrews, be made an offer for the JDP. And in some rare cases, likewise, students may apply for the JDP and it may go the other way. But generally speaking, for us, if you were to apply for the program, it could be, in fact, that you are then unsuccessful in an application overall for the university.
Thank you. And is there an opportunity to change majors between the 6 available majors while enrolled in the program? And I know we had another question asking, can we run through the list of 6 majors again? So just so everybody tuning in can know, the 6 majors in the joint degree program include English, History, Classical Studies, Film and Media Studies, International Relations, and Economics. So those are the 6 majors. You can't double major in the joint degree program, but you can minor in areas that William Mary has to offer. But in terms of the 6 majors and the question about whether you can change between the 6 when enrolled, I'll leave that for the directors.
I'll answer that one. The answer is yes, but it can be difficult. And that decision needs to be made within your first year, right? So by the start of your second year is when students can sometimes change majors, or in your first semester change majors. But you still have to have all the preparation in order to be able to go through. And so some majors it's easier to switch between and some it is more difficult. We work with you if at all possible to make things happen. It might require some summer school in order to catch up, but it's possible.
Okay, next question. So this is for our student panelists. Since you experienced 2 different academic traditions and styles of teaching and learning, how has the exposure to both broadened your horizons?
I would love to speak on this. I did a BBA, so I spent my first year at William and Mary, which I found lovely to kind of experience studying international relations for the first time. I didn't really have any like global high school, so I got a pretty good introduction to what I would be studying at St. Andrews. And then at St. Andrews, I got to experience courses that were a lot more specific that allowed me to explore my newfound interest in kind of security and defense. So in my 3rd year classes, especially, I was really honed in on different types of international security cultures, which I really, really enjoyed. And I'm now planning to write my honors thesis on at William and Mary.
Great. Marissa?
Yeah, I totally agree with Grace, and it definitely allowed me to explore my interests more, but also focusing a little bit more on the writing styles is what I found very interesting. At William and Mary, you get to build a bit more on the sophistication of your writing style, how you want it to flow in every essay that you write. Whereas at St. Andrews, I find it a bit more straightforward, and both styles have been incredibly helpful as I've done my internship. Some have required a more William and Mary style way of writing, and others have required a more St. Andrews style of writing. So really getting to expand how you're able to write gives you so much fluidity and flexibility by the time you're getting prepared for internships or other writing proposals, theses, and things like that. It really allows you to be flexible and be able to explore, in my opinion, a lot more.
Julia?
Just to add on to that, I quite agree with both Grayson and Marissa, but I think the teaching is another really valuable part of the joint degree program. I found at William and Mary, it's regular American experience where you usually have one professor teaching all your classes, doing all your lectures, and then maybe you break off into discussion sections. Whereas once you transition to St. Andrews, you go to these lectures where you have, I don't know, up to maybe 20 professors a semester because they're all teaching a few lectures each. And as a student of history, I found that really valuable because at William and Mary, I got to sort of form these really wonderful connections with my professors and talk about my essays. Whereas at St. Andrews, I did have seminars, so I could talk with my tutors, but I really got to benefit from the expertise of all these professors who are coming in to talk about their specialty in, I don't know, medieval monastic life, perhaps. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was very valuable.
Thank you all for sharing. So the next question is about early decision to William Mary. So when you apply to William Mary in early decision and apply for the joint degree program, are you also committing to the joint degree program if admitted, or is that a separate time frame to commit? That is a great question, and it can be so confusing. I tell people I wish I had a whiteboard that I could just pull out and show the different routes going early decision to William Mary versus joint degree program, regular decision, ED2. So early decision to William Mary, you can absolutely still apply early decision to William Mary and still submit that joint degree program essay, but there is no binding commitment to the joint degree program. So let's say you decide, well, the joint degree program is my number one choice or number two, but William Mary is my number one choice or number two. You love both equally. You can still apply ED to William Mary, submit your JDP essay. When you find out your decisions, let's say you're admitted to William Mary, you find out your joint degree program admission decision and you're accepted. And you ultimately decide, actually, yes, I want to do the joint degree program. I've been accepted to both, but I want the joint degree program. That joint degree program acceptance can override your binding commitment to William Mary. So just kind of laying it out there, that if you do want to go early decision to William Mary, it is committing you to William Mary, but if you're accepted to the joint degree program, it can override that commitment. It's the only thing that can. So I like to share that, yes, you can absolutely look into that route. And of course, for those out there that don't want to make an early decision binding commitment, that's okay. You can still apply regular decision to William Mary, and again, still apply to the joint degree program, submit your essay within that. And then the next question asks about, our average our average GPA, SAT, ACT for the joint degree program. So we actually don't track the numbers so much because the main part of the joint degree program application is the essay. Because by that time, you've been accepted to William Mary, so we know that you are very academically capable, that you are prepared for college. But in your essay, we want to know that you're prepared for this unique program that's going to put you in two very different education environments. So it's not so much about the numbers and the GPA and the grades, it's more about that essay at that time when your joint degree program application is reviewed. And then the next question asks, does transitioning between campuses make it difficult to feel properly integrated into either campus? So I'm going to definitely let the students answer that. So as you cannot participate in the same clubs, activities for all 4 years like some others, I know some people have mentioned some of their clubs they're involved in. Can you talk about that kind of social side of the transition?
I'd be happy to jump into that because I would say it's actually possible in some cases to participate in the same clubs. Freshman year at William and Mary, it was really wonderful. I was able to try out lots of different activities, knitting club and some music ensembles, as well as the James Blair Historical Review, which is our historical journal on campus that students can submit to. And then at St. Andrews, I went and joined another music ensemble and their historical journal. And the wonderful thing about being a fully integrated student is that you're able to form these connections. And then I was actually able to participate as an editor for the James Blair Historical Review. Like while I was abroad at William and Mary, I would hop on a Zoom call with the other editors. And it was really wonderful to keep that connection with campus, with William and Mary while I was abroad. But it definitely can be challenging for some more kind of in-person based clubs.
I will say I think this is where the ABBA schedule is a little bit beneficial because at St. Andrews, I got to first experience, for example, one of my favorite clubs was the volleyball club. So I spent the first year just kind of being a team member, going to different socials and making connections. And then the second year, I was one of the social secretaries. So got to be more involved in the committee side, whereas I'm in Delta Gamma at William and Mary, a sorority. And the way that we elect our committee is by calendar year. So just because I was going away for the second part of that calendar year, I wasn't able to participate on that committee. So it's just something to think about. But I didn't feel excluded in any way from any club on either campus because I was having a bit more of a transient undergraduate experience.
Thank you for sharing. So the next question are for the international relations students out there. So for the international relations panelists, can you share what are some of the most meaningful experiences, such as research clubs or internships that students have been a part of? And actually, I'll open that up to any of the majors on the panel too. So feel free to share any of those experiences too.
Sure, I can go first. I'm an international relations major. The courses have definitely been amazing on both sides, William and Mary and St. Andrews, because they offer different sorts of classes. So, on William and Mary's side, for example, there was a class on Latin America history and looking at it through a historical lens. Whereas at St. Andrews, there was a class based on armaments and security, and so you get many opportunities to explore any sorts of interests that you have on both sides. And for a bit more of the career-based aspects, while I was at St. Andrews my third year, I was accepted and I was a part of William and Mary's Charles Center internship. So I've been back in Williamsburg. I've been working alongside in local government. And so you definitely still get those connections and opportunities no matter which school you're at. William and Mary was always welcome to work with me, despite being at St. Andrews for 2 years. And St. Andrews has also been very accommodating when I wanted to work with a professor there or to be able to continue doing a couple clubs that I was a part of before. They both are very flexible and very open about keeping those connections open no matter which school you are at.
I'll just kind of build on what Marissa said as the other IR student. I found the proximity to Europe incredibly important for my development as an IR student. Just being able to travel and see the world for the first time, I think really supplemented my education and just my development as a scholar of IR. And then, like Marissa said, I got the opportunity to participate in William and Mary's DC Summer Institute program. So I lived and studied in DC for a summer, also had an internship in DC, which was incredible to see up close how the Hill works. And you're supposed to take another or a class for the DCSI in the spring semester. So I had to do that virtually, but they were incredibly accommodating, even when I couldn't be in person. And like I said, made me feel incredibly included despite the fact that I was an ocean away.
I'd like to share my experience as an English major. And this kind of ties to that, initial choice you have to make when applying into a specific major. Because personally, I haven't felt pigeonholed at all from that decision or by that decision. But I was lucky enough with the William and Mary Liberal Arts curriculum to take some sort of introductory, like anthropology focused music classes. And long story short, I've ended up with an internship through the William and Mary Career Center, is how I found out about it, with the Country Music Association. For it's virtual and throughout the entire year this year. And I just felt that sort of taking those classes at William and Mary, on top of, the depth that you get at St. Andrews, it really helped to sort of broaden my further career opportunities.
Thank you for sharing. So we have quite a few questions of people asking about the acceptance rate to the joint degree program, which I know earlier I said we don't tend to track so much, but I have, seen numbers over the years, and I can say with confidence that usually the acceptance rate on our side for the William Mary Joint Degree Program tends to be about 20 to 30%. So of the students applying to the joint degree program through William Mary, it's about 20 to 30%. And then in terms of the next question, we have someone asking, will a recording of this event be provided? Yes, we are recording this event. We will provide it on our website, shared communications, so you will have access to the full information session and panel about the JDP after today. And then this question is directed to our St. Andrews colleagues. So of the 41% of international students at the University of St. Andrews, what is the breakdown? So which percent are US students, for instance?
Sure, I can hop in here. So generally speaking, we don't have it by specifically just the US. We track it by sort of the Americas plural. For the past few years, it's been around 22 to 24% have been from the Americas plural. That's not just for the JDP, that's overall in terms of that international cohort at St. Andrews. But yeah, 22 to 24% the last couple of years.
Great, thank you for sharing. And we have quite a few students, or quite a few attendees asking a bit more about when you decide if you want to do the track. So ABBA or ABAB. And someone asked if there's an AABB option. So for those tuning in, there is just ABBA or ABAB, but you don't have to decide when you apply. So I know Harmony and Madhavi spoke earlier about the fact that you do not have to decide right away on that, and you will have meetings with directors and your advisors to decide which track you take. So no worries there and no pressure to decide when you're writing your essay on which track you want to do. And then also related to that, we do have people asking when students declare their major. So for the joint degree program, the major you're talking about in your essay and the one you're applying to would be your major that you have in the program. So it's not one that you come in undeclared to. This is the only program at William Mary where you're coming in declared into a specific major. And you cannot double major in the joint degree program, but you can minor. And we do have a question asking about minors. So for our panelists out there, are there specific minors you have to pair with your major, or are all minors at William Mary open?
I'll answer this. Some minors are easier to complete paired with certain majors. So for example, IR majors might find it easier to also do a minor in economics because some of the, introductory courses are required for both of those programs. But you don't have to, and you may do any major that is, or any minor that William and Mary offers. So I can't remember how many, but there's a lot. And, it's not guaranteed that you can do them, but with early planning, many of them are a possibility and not even a huge stretch. So some students plan it out really specifically, and some students just end up in their senior year and they're like, oh, if I take one more French class, I've got a French minor, right? Because they ended up studying what they were interested in, so it can work both ways, that you end up with a minor because you got excited about anthropological music classes and just ended up with a minor in anthropology, right? Because you started taking those classes. So you don't have to declare a minor until you are a senior. So you've got lots of time to try to put one together or end up with one.
Great. And for the next question, how does advising and support work between the two universities, specifically for internships and career goals or post-grad placement?
Well, why don't I apologize for my cat, and then also answer that at the same time. She's decided that she wants to be part of this discussion as well. So I think one of the things that's really special about this, and this goes back to an early question, is this anything other than just an exchange program? As Harmony mentioned, you will be members of both universities throughout your 4 years involved in the program, which means that you have access to career services, to alumni groups, and advice and help from both institutions, regardless of where you are. And I think that does make a real difference in terms of trying to think about where you might want to go after university, or indeed the kind of the internship availabilities. I mean, I have to be honest. I think there are more internship things available in the US than there are in the UK. It's just a different culture in that respect. But any student on the JDP is able to participate in that. And indeed, as you've heard, some people can do it through the Charles Center at William & Mary, even though they've spent 2 years at St. Andrews. So just to summarize, it is just to say that you will have advisors at both institutions helping you make the big decisions that you need to make throughout the 4 years that you are an undergraduate, and indeed make some of the decisions that will affect your immediate choices afterwards.
And then we have some questions asking about the timeline of acceptance and when students have to commit to the joint degree program, which are very good questions to ask. So I know someone asked earlier about kind of early decision to William & Mary and then regular decision. So if you apply early decision 1 to William & Mary and you still submit your joint degree program essay, you will find out your William & Mary decision in mid-December. If you apply early decision 2 to William & Mary, you will find out your William & Mary decision in February. If you apply regular decision to William & Mary, you will find out your William & Mary decision in March. All of those students that applied in any of those pools that applied to the joint degree program, you will find out your joint degree program decision in April altogether. So if you are accepted early decision 1, if you're accepted early decision 2, if you're accepted regular decision to William & Mary and you're wondering, well, what about my joint degree program decision? You will find out in early April at the latest. At the latest. We do try to release it usually that first week of April, if not sooner. So you all find out together if you've been accepted to William & Mary through those methods, you'll find out your JDP decision together. If you're not accepted to William & Mary in any of those pools, you'll find out your joint degree program's decision pretty soon after, because it's not going to happen. You can't be accepted to the joint degree program if you're not to William & Mary. So that's kind of the timeline. In terms of committing, if you applied early decision 1 or 2 to William & Mary and you are accepted, and then in early April, you find out you're accepted to the joint degree program as well, you have to decide pretty soon after that whether you want your enrollment deposit to stay for your spot for William & Mary, or if you want it to be applied for your spot in the joint degree program. If you apply regular decision to William & Mary and you find out in late March, and then pretty soon after you find out, hey, yeah, I've also been accepted to the joint degree program, you typically have until May 1st to decide which program you want to deposit with, or you find out from 10 other schools that you've been admitted to them as well. You typically have until May 1st to make your deposit and commit. So hopefully that timeline is helpful. Again, don't have a whiteboard to pull out and share that all. If our St. Andrews colleagues would like to jump in there and talk about their timeline a bit, please feel free to go for it. But I know it can be a little complicated when talking about multiple scholarships or multiple applications.
I'm conscious of time, so I'll quickly just echo in terms of the sort of timeline for us. Depending on exactly when you apply for the program, there will be slightly different deadlines when we would hope that you would be able to let us know whether you are looking to accept that offer. If you have any issues with any of the stated deadlines that we have, then you are able to sort of get in touch with us and we can have a chat about that. But depending on when you apply, there are slightly different deadlines of when we would expect you to make a decision on that.
Thank you. And we have questions asking about scholarship for specifically the joint degree program, but also just scholarship in general. So for those tuning in, if you do get one of our merit scholarships through William and Mary, and you're also accepted to the joint degree program, any of those merit scholarship kind of money parts can be applied to the joint degree program, and you can still be a part of that scholarship group. I will say if you're applying for need-based financial aid, you will get two different financial aid packages. You'll get one specifically for William and Mary and then one for the Joint Degree Program. So you know the breakdown of costs on which path you decide to go for. So that's kind of how it works on our end. There are no specific scholarships for the Joint Degree Program for students applying to it through William and Mary, but if you do get a William and Mary merit scholarship, that can be applied to the program.
On the St Andrews side, there is a specific scholarship solely for this program. So there are some iterations within there, different amounts, but there is one kind of specific scholarship that I would point you towards as you're on the scholarship webpage or you're on the scholarship application form. It's pretty clear. It will say this is the one that you are wanting to click as you go through for this specific program.
Thank you for sharing. And we have quite a few more questions actually. Many questions have been shared, but I want to let you know that when we wrap up in about 5 to 10 minutes, if you didn't get your questions answered today, I will share emails at the end so that you can reach out with those questions and communicate with us. But I'll keep going through our large list of questions here. What are the differences in classes between the schools? Are the requirements different between just doing one of the schools and the joint degree program? Does it have its own requirements, basically, is the question. Yes, Jack.
Hey, so in terms of like the differences between classes in each school, William and Mary, you're typically taking 5 classes a semester, whereas St. Andrews, you're taking 3. That doesn't mean it's easier though. At St. Andrews, it's much more independent, learning focused. So for me, I would have like a lot more like textbook readings, for example, or outside literature to read. Whereas at William and Mary, you're having your lectures and then you'll maybe have like an assignment or 2 per week, kind of like typical high school homework. It's kind of more like busy work, where at St. Andrews, it's more like you're adding to your learning like at home independently. And that second part, what was it?
So basically, the second part was more about
Yeah.
are the requirements different in the joint degree program than at William Mary? William Mary, we have our call curriculum, we have elective courses, that kind of thing. But what are the requirements in the joint degree program? And they are different. I will say that
Yeah.
now. But Harmony, you want to talk about that?
I'll take that. Yes, they are different. And there are program specific requirements. Some of them overlap, like foreign language proficiency. Some of the call courses you will take, a call 150, some call 200s. But they are different. And that's one of the things that we work with in that transitions program or transitions class is so that you are very clear on what the requirements are and when to take them. So they're different. They have their own catalogs. That's the long and short of it.
And the catalogs can be found online. So those asking about, well, what are the specific major breakdowns? What happens in this major? Definitely go to our joint degree program website. You can click on the for current students, for prospective students, admission, compare William Mary and JDP. We have all those different pages. And for prospective students, we have links to what each major outlines and links to the catalog. So definitely helpful to see what kind of classes you could take, what you could choose from, and how those years are outlined. And then let's see, for our student panelists, what advice would you give to applicants when applying to the joint degree program or just to William Mary in general?
Well, obviously, I don't work in admissions, so I don't entirely know, what you're looking for. But what my approach was my high school was, I was in a magnet program that was an engineering like magnet program, and now I'm an English major. And so I sort of wanted to show like my approach to learning is like a full brain person, like I enjoy the creative side of things. I also enjoy the science and math side of things. And I think the liberal arts curriculum at William and Mary also values that. And so I really tried to show, through my involvement in the arts, but also my involvement in this magnet program, sort of how I would fit that liberal arts curriculum, and also how I would take advantage of the different learning opportunities at each school. Because as a person who values different types of learning, that was also a big draw to the program for me.
Great. Time for a couple more questions. This next question is about, can you get internships and or jobs in either country over the course of the program? So can you work during the joint degree program, and can you get internships in both countries? Yeah, Julia.
So you can. The wonderful thing about the student visa, as at least as an American student, because I'm just coming from that side, since I started at William and Mary, your visa includes, I believe, up to 20 hours per week of working hours during the school year, and then I believe during the summer you can actually work full time. And so, actually, last year I interned at the global office at St. Andrews and worked with Dr. Nevada, which was really wonderful. But also here in the U.S., a couple summers previous, I was able to complete an internship through the William and Mary Charles Center, working at a museum in Delaware, and it was really wonderful to have both sets of opportunities available.
Yeah, Sam.
I will say too, for those of you for people coming over from St. Andrews as well, it's still the same process. You can only work up to 20 hours a week as a student. We'd like you guys to have time to study rather than work full time. However, if you are a U.S. citizen, of course, you can get a job somewhere else. But the visa requirements for that over here are a little bit different if you are an international student. So that's something to talk about once you're in the program, and if you want to do that outside of William and Mary in general, that's something to have a conversation about.
Grayson?
So I worked part-time throughout my time at St. Andrews. I worked at a local pub, The Rule. If you go, it is a student institution and you will know it. And I also had the opportunity to have an internship through the DC campus, or the William and Mary campus in DC. That was not this summer, but last summer. So that was an internship in the US. And then this summer, I've been working for a London-based think tank remotely, but I maintained my job at the Rule this summer. So I lived in St. Andrews, doing 20 hours of my internship and 20 hours of my part-time job at the pub, because not during term time, you can work up to 40 hours a week on your visa.
Thank you for sharing. And the final question before we wrap up today is for our student panelists. If they can go down the line and say really quickly, what are your plans for after graduation? If you're not sure yet, what are you considering? Just go for it. Feel free to jump in.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. I am hoping to be admitted to the University of Edinburgh for a master's program that kind of combines international security and international law.
I'm not entirely sure yet, but grad school is definitely on the table. I want to go into public policy or research with my econ degree.
I'm looking to go directly into the music industry on sort of a business side, and looking at jobs specifically in the music industry.
My plan is to gain some more professional experience in the museum world and then apply for a master's in history or material culture.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for sharing. Marissa, do you want to jump in there?
Yes, I'm looking at either going into law school straight after undergrad or going more towards the DC route and working in policy and legislation.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for sharing. That is our time today for this information session and panel. I know for those tuning in, we didn't get to every question today. The time just flies when doing this event, but please feel free to email me at caroline@wm.edu. That's my first name, caroline@wm.edu. I'm also on the William Mary website. Feel free to email me your questions. I will also drop in the chat to everyone the emails that we have for our students Let me drop that in right now. So this webpage I'm sharing with everyone can connect you with current students in the joint degree program, and you can email them at any point. And then I also want to share our main page for the joint degree program on the Waymarie side. That is in the chat as well. So feel free to explore that webpage, look through the different course catalogs, learn a bit more about advising in the joint degree program, and I hope those links are helpful. But thank you so much for joining us today and learning more about the joint degree program and having some of your questions answered. And thank you to our panelists for providing their perspective and their stories in the joint degree program. Thank you, everyone.